When a man experiences real love, something within him begins to shift in a way he cannot easily ignore or fully explain. It feels like a quiet inner awakening, not loud or dramatic, but steady and deep, touching both the part of him he understands clearly and the part he usually avoids or does not know how to express. Love at this stage no longer stays as just an emotion directed toward another person. It slowly becomes something that reflects his own inner condition. It starts to show him who he really is beneath habits, roles, and surface behavior. It is not only attraction anymore, and it is not just emotional attachment either. It begins to act like a mirror that reveals his inner balance, his hidden wounds, his fears, and also his emotional truth that he may have avoided for a long time. When he meets someone who feels aligned with his deeper self, something subtle begins to happen inside him. The distance between his inner world and outer experience starts to reduce. It feels as if parts of him that were disconnected are slowly coming back together. There is a sense of familiarity that is hard to describe, like something within him recognizes something within the other person. It can feel like an old memory that he cannot fully remember, yet it still creates emotion. It is like hearing a melody he once knew deeply, but had not heard for many years, and suddenly it plays again in a soft and unexpected way. This kind of experience often brings two feelings at the same time. One is vulnerability, because he starts to feel open in ways he is not used to. The other is a sense of wholeness, because something inside him feels more complete, even if he cannot logically explain why. He may feel exposed, yet not unsafe. He may feel emotionally open, yet still grounded in himself. Over time, he starts to understand that this is not about two people completing each other as if something is missing. Instead, it is about recognizing parts of himself reflected through another person, as if the connection is helping him see himself more clearly. This type of connection naturally encourages self-discovery. He begins to notice that his emotional reactions are not random or meaningless. They carry information about his inner world. What he feels in moments of closeness, distance, misunderstanding, or understanding all begins to show him something about his own emotional patterns. Love slowly becomes a process of awareness, where his thoughts, emotions, and actions start to interact more deeply with his sense of identity. Instead of escaping into imagination, dependency, or confusion, he starts becoming more honest with himself through what he experiences in the relationship. In real love, he does not actually lose himself as many people fear. Instead, he begins to see himself more clearly than before. The connection highlights both his strengths and his emotional weaknesses. It brings forward the parts of him that are strong, stable, and grounded, but it also reveals the parts that are still sensitive, uncertain, or unhealed. Every experience inside the relationship, whether it is happiness, disagreement, silence, emotional distance, or deep understanding, becomes part of his personal development. Slowly, he realizes that real love is not about avoiding difficult truths, but about being able to face truth while staying connected to another person. As this bond becomes deeper and more meaningful, he naturally starts to let go of shallow emotional needs that once felt important. The need for constant validation, approval from others, or the desire to prove his worth begins to reduce. The relationship stops being something he uses to fill emotional emptiness or to escape loneliness. Instead, it becomes something that supports emotional growth, clarity, and inner stability. He begins to understand that love is not a tool for escaping himself, but a space where he can understand himself more honestly. Through this connection, he also begins to recognize parts of himself that were hidden, ignored, or not fully developed. The woman he loves is not just someone he feels attached to on the surface. She becomes a reflection of his own inner journey, showing him aspects of himself that he may not easily see alone. Through her presence, he becomes more aware of where he is emotionally balanced and where he still needs growth or healing. This awareness does not make him feel weak. Instead, it brings maturity. His emotional responses become more stable over time, and his decisions begin to feel more thoughtful and intentional rather than impulsive. Real love also quietly teaches him that strength is not about hiding emotions or suppressing what he feels inside. True strength is the ability to feel deeply without losing control of himself in the process. He learns that emotions are not enemies to be controlled or avoided, but signals that help him understand his inner world. Vulnerability starts to become a natural bridge between what he feels internally and how he expresses himself externally. In a world where many men are taught to stay emotionally closed or distant, love gently breaks down those internal barriers and encourages openness in a healthy and grounded way. At first, this emotional openness can feel uncomfortable or even unfamiliar. Letting go of control, emotional defense, and old protective patterns requires courage and patience. He may begin to face fears that were previously hidden, such as fear of rejection, fear of not being enough, or fear of loss. These feelings may surface more clearly when he is emotionally invested. However, as he moves through these experiences instead of avoiding them, he slowly discovers a deeper form of inner strength. It is the strength to remain authentic even when it feels uncomfortable. He begins to understand that showing his true emotions does not make him weaker. In fact, it makes him more real, more grounded, and more capable of forming a genuine connection. Over time, this process changes the way he experiences love entirely. It is no longer just excitement or emotional intensity. It becomes something deeper, more stable, and more reflective. He starts to see that love is not only about how he feels about someone else, but also about how clearly he is willing to see himself. The relationship becomes a space where growth happens naturally, not through force, but through awareness. He learns patience, emotional honesty, and presence. He begins to understand that real love does not remove challenges, but it gives him the strength to face those challenges without losing his center. In this way, love becomes part of his transformation. It does not turn him into someone else. It reveals who he has always been underneath layers of fear, expectation, and emotional protection. And as he continues in this journey, he starts to realize that the deepest form of connection is not about losing identity, but about becoming more fully himself while standing beside someone who reflects that truth back to him with clarity and depth. As he becomes more emotionally open, the meaning of intimacy slowly starts to change for him in a very natural way. It is no longer something connected with distance, protection, or keeping emotional walls around himself. Earlier, he may have believed that staying guarded was the safest way to move through relationships. But now that belief starts to lose its strength. Intimacy begins to feel different. It becomes a space where trust can exist without pressure and where safety is created through honesty instead of silence. In this new stage of understanding, the relationship is no longer seen as something that can take away his independence. Instead, it starts to feel like something that supports his emotional growth. He does not feel trapped in connection anymore. He starts to feel supported by it. Slowly, he learns to listen with more attention, not just hearing words, but understanding the feelings behind them. He also begins to respond in a more honest way, without hiding behind carefully built emotional masks. Speaking truthfully becomes easier with time, even if it once felt uncomfortable. There are still moments when old habits try to return. Sometimes he feels the urge to pull back, to stay quiet, or to create emotional distance again because that is what he used to do when things felt intense. But now, instead of always following that pattern, he starts choosing honesty more often. Each time he does this, he notices that something inside him becomes stronger and more settled. Vulnerability, which once felt like a weakness, slowly becomes something else entirely. It becomes a quiet form of strength, almost like a personal decision to no longer live by outdated emotional rules. He begins to see that vulnerability is not about losing control. It is about choosing truth over protection. This realization changes how he understands himself. He starts to notice that real strength does not come from suppressing emotions or hiding what he feels. Real strength comes from being able to face those emotions directly and still remain steady. This shift does not happen all at once. It builds slowly through experience, reflection, and moments of emotional honesty that slowly replace old patterns. As love deepens, his understanding of relationships also starts to shift. He no longer sees love as something connected to possession or control. Earlier thinking may have made him feel that closeness meant holding on tightly or expecting certainty at all times. Now, that view begins to change. He starts to value freedom within the relationship itself. He understands that real love does not depend on ownership or restriction. Instead, it grows when both people are allowed to exist freely while still staying emotionally connected. This new understanding helps him support the individuality of the person he loves. He no longer feels the need to shape her into someone else or limit her independence. Instead, he begins to see her independence as something strong and valuable. What once might have felt like a challenge to him now feels like something he respects deeply. He notices that her individuality does not reduce connection, but actually strengthens it in a different way. At the same time, he also becomes more aware of his own identity. He is no longer losing himself inside the relationship. Instead, he is growing alongside it. Love slowly becomes a shared journey of emotional growth rather than a space of dependency. It is no longer about one person completing the other. Instead, it becomes about two individuals growing while staying connected through understanding and respect. This changes how he behaves in small and large moments. He becomes more patient during misunderstandings. He becomes more open during conversations. He starts to value clarity instead of assumptions. Even when disagreements happen, he begins to see them as moments to understand each other better rather than moments of distance. This shift also transforms how he sees masculinity. The older idea he once held about masculinity begins to lose importance. He no longer measures his value only through dominance, control, or external achievement. Those things no longer define him in the same way. Instead, he starts to find meaning in emotional honesty and inner stability. He begins to understand that being strong does not mean being emotionally closed. It actually includes being kind when it is difficult, being patient when it is tested, and being aware of his emotions instead of avoiding them. He notices that compassion does not weaken him. It makes him more grounded. Emotional awareness does not take away his strength. It gives him a clearer understanding of himself and others. Over time, this creates a more balanced version of who he is becoming. He is not rejecting his past completely, but he is no longer controlled by it either. He is learning a new way of being that feels more stable and more real. In this state of growth, love also becomes more steady. It is no longer driven by insecurity or fear of loss. It is no longer filled with confusion about where he stands or what he means to someone. Instead, it becomes something based on respect and genuine emotional connection. The need to constantly prove or question love slowly fades. What remains is something calmer and more grounded. Every shared moment starts to feel more meaningful. Even simple conversations carry more depth because they are built on honesty. Even silence between two people no longer feels empty or uncomfortable. Instead, it begins to feel natural, as if presence itself is enough. In that silence, there is understanding without pressure to speak. There is comfort without explanation. As this continues, he begins to realize that emotional growth is not a final destination, but an ongoing process. There is no point where everything becomes perfect or complete. Instead, there is a continuous movement toward better understanding, both of himself and of the person he is connected to. Each experience adds something to this understanding, even the difficult ones. He also becomes more aware of how his responses shape the relationship. Instead of reacting out of habit, he starts pausing and reflecting. He notices that a small change in response can completely change the outcome of a moment. This awareness helps him act with more intention rather than impulse. Over time, this creates more emotional stability between both people. In the deeper layers of this experience, love becomes less about expectation and more about presence. It is no longer about asking what the relationship should be doing for him. Instead, it becomes about how both people can exist together in a way that feels honest and supportive. This shift removes unnecessary pressure and replaces it with understanding. He begins to see that emotional connection does not require constant intensity. It can also exist in calmness. It can exist in quiet understanding. It can exist in simple moments where nothing dramatic is happening, but everything still feels aligned. This realization helps him appreciate the relationship in a more grounded way. Over time, he also learns that emotional growth does not mean he will never struggle again. There will still be moments of doubt, moments of fear, and moments when old habits try to return. But the difference now is that he does not stay stuck in those moments. He moves through them with more awareness and less resistance. He trusts the process of growth more than the discomfort of the moment. As all of this continues to develop, his understanding of love, masculinity, and emotional connection becomes more mature. He is no longer the same person he was when he first entered this emotional space. He has changed slowly, not through force, but through experience and reflection. And in that change, he finds a version of love that feels more real, more stable, and more deeply connected to who he is becoming. Over time, he begins to experience a deeper sense of calm inside the relationship, a kind of peace that he did not fully understand before. He is no longer constantly searching for approval from the outside world, and he does not feel the same need to prove his worth through reactions or attention. Instead, his focus slowly shifts towards something more stable and meaningful. He starts to value presence, truth, and emotional clarity more than temporary excitement or confusion. The relationship becomes less about chasing moments and more about understanding each other in a steady and honest way. As this change continues, he notices that the connection between both individuals starts to feel different. It is no longer just about emotional highs or uncertain lows. It becomes a shared space where both people are allowed to grow at their own pace. He begins to understand that real connection does not limit a person, it supports them. It does not control growth, it encourages it. This realization slowly changes how he behaves in the relationship. He becomes less demanding, less reactive, and more open to listening and understanding. Love, in this stage of his life, begins to teach him patience in a deeper way. He learns that not everything needs an immediate answer, and not every situation requires a quick reaction. Some things take time to unfold naturally. He starts to accept that relationships are not meant to be perfect or without challenges. Instead, they are meant to evolve through different phases of understanding. Difficult moments no longer feel like complete failures. They begin to feel like lessons that help both people see each other more clearly. Through this understanding, he becomes more grounded in his emotions and less controlled by sudden reactions or fear. As emotional maturity grows within him, love slowly transforms into something more stable and enduring. It is no longer only about excitement, attraction, or emotional intensity that comes and goes. It becomes something deeper, something more conscious. He starts to understand love as devotion, something steady that does not depend on constant change or dramatic expression. It is calm, consistent, and aware. He realizes that real love does not need to be proven through loud actions or extreme moments. It is shown through respect, consistency, and simply being present when it matters most. With this shift in understanding, his entire way of seeing life begins to change. He becomes more aware of small and simple moments that he once ignored. Things like quiet conversations, shared silence, or even ordinary daily experiences start to hold deeper meaning. He no longer feels the need to constantly chase something bigger or more dramatic to feel fulfilled. Instead, he begins to notice that there is beauty in simplicity. Life feels less like a race and more like an experience that can be appreciated in each passing moment. As time moves forward, he starts to see love as something that goes beyond just two individuals. It begins to feel like a reflection of life itself, something that is deeply connected, meaningful, and naturally woven into human experience. This understanding brings him a sense of gratitude that he did not have before. He feels more emotionally calm and less anxious about what comes next. Instead of constantly thinking about the future or worrying about what might happen, he begins to spend more time in the present moment where real connection actually exists. Gradually, he realizes something important about love that changes his inner world completely. Love is not about finding someone who completes him, because he was never meant to be incomplete. Instead, love is about becoming more aware of who he already is and growing into a more complete version of himself through experience, honesty, and emotional understanding. The relationship becomes like a mirror, not in a superficial way, but in a deep emotional sense. It reflects his strengths, his fears, his patterns, and also his potential. Through this reflection, he begins to understand himself better than before. In this deeper awareness, love becomes something much more than just a feeling. It turns into a process of transformation. It starts to shape his thoughts in a new direction. It softens the parts of him that were once guarded or closed. It strengthens his emotional stability and helps him respond to life in a more balanced way. He begins to see that real connection is not built through control, expectations, or fantasy. It is built through truth, respect, and the courage to be emotionally honest, even when it is uncomfortable. When a man truly experiences this kind of love, the change does not stay only on the surface. It goes deeper into his identity. He does not just feel differently, he becomes different from within. His awareness expands, his emotional responses become calmer, and his understanding of life becomes more grounded. He starts to feel more connected, not only to the person he is with, but also to himself. He no longer sees love as something to chase or something to hold tightly. Instead, he begins to see it as something to experience with openness and awareness. In this purest form, love is no longer a possession or a goal. It becomes a journey of awakening. It guides him towards self-understanding rather than dependency. It helps him release unnecessary fear and emotional confusion. It brings him closer to emotional clarity, where he can see things as they truly are instead of how he fears them to be. Over time, this kind of love does not just change his relationship, it changes his entire way of living. He becomes more patient with himself and others. He becomes more thoughtful in his decisions and more calm in situations that once would have disturbed him. The need for constant validation slowly disappears, replaced by inner stability. He starts to trust life more, not because everything is perfect, but because he understands that everything unfolds in its own time and meaning. This journey of love also teaches him that emotional depth is not something to fear, it is something to embrace. The more he allows himself to feel and understand, the more clarity he gains about what truly matters. He stops running from discomfort and starts learning from it. He stops avoiding emotional truth and starts accepting it as part of growth. In the end, love becomes a quiet but powerful force in his life. It does not dominate him or control him. Instead, it guides him gently toward a more conscious way of living. He no longer defines love as something external that he must find and keep. He understands it as something that grows within him as he becomes more aware, more honest, and more open to life as it is. Through this entire process, he realizes that love was never just about another person. It was always also about his own transformation, his own healing, and his own awakening into a deeper understanding of life and himself.